We just spent the last 30 days traveling around Japan, seeking to find out if it is truly worth the hype.
From the neon lights of Tokyo, to the ancient streets of Kyoto, to the snowy volcanoes of Hokkaido, we explored beyond the classic spots. And it brought to light that maybe the famous places that we all know and love aren't exactly what they seem.
So in this video, we are going to be rating Japan based off of 4 categories. We've got things to do, food, cost of living, and atmosphere.
Along the way, we'll share some helpful tips we learned during our journey, talk about some must-do activities, and of course, talk about if Japan really deserves the praise. So let's get into it. For our first category, we have things to do.
So we want to say right off the bat, there is so much more to do here in Japan than just like Tokyo, Osaka, and Kyoto, and there are things that we enjoyed a lot more.
We split our 30 days here across a few different cities, being Tokyo, then Lake Kawaguchi, Kyoto, Osaka, then up into the northern island of Hokkaido, and then we went to Nikko. So Japan is really interesting coming from a US perspective in that I don't think that most people are really aware of much else in Japan outside of Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka. So for everything there is to do inside the city, there's significantly more to do outside the city, like surfing epic coastlines and hiking snowy volcanoes and just enjoying the autumn colors in the mountains here.
So that leads us to the diversity of things to do. So cities are kind of tough. We learned through our time as digital nomads that most cities have pretty much all the same things to do, like eating, drinking, walking around, sightseeing. And cities in Japan are really no different. They have all of those things. It's all just a little bit more outrageous and like in your face a lot of time. But they do also have some pretty unique things that you will not find in the US. These gigantic arcades for you to win stuff, but I don't think anybody actually ever wins them.
And a lot of these outdoor shopping malls that always have way too many people, you can find these literally everywhere.
All these different kinds of animal cafes, like this dog one, except the dogs here are rude, don't go here.
And a lot of temples. And a lot of people. As you'll probably see on the internet, a lot of creators make it look like it's empty most places you go, but this is what it looks like in most of the common activities that you'll do here in Japan. And that's one of the big reasons why I highly, highly recommend you get outside of the city, because that's really where Japan shines. Over the years of being digital nomads, we have quickly shifted from being big city people to big time nature people, and there's just a surprising amount of beautiful nature we had here in Japan.
Yeah, I knew about like all the cherry blossoms and stuff like that, but I really had no idea what to expect coming here in the fall, and we were kind of blown away, honestly. Knowing that we'd get tired of the city, we built in little nature stops along the way, and I'm so glad we did. First one was Lake Kawaguchi, which is one of the 5 lakes surrounding Mount Fuji, and it was just like a stunning, beautiful, peaceful oasis. Like Mount Fuji is just top tier, and the flowers, the lake, everything was just beautiful.
Then in Hokkaido and Nikko gave us some incredible fall colors, but Hokkaido has gotta be on your list of must-do activities and must-do stops. We went to a place called Asahi Dake, which we had no idea about before we got to Hokkaido, which is an incredible volcano. We got up there and it was just snow covered and it was just beautiful. It was all around just a magical experience and honestly one of the best things we did while we were here.
Yeah, I was not expecting to hike a volcano in Japan, but here we are.
Here we were.
And so we didn't do it on this trip, but we will definitely do it on our next trip. You can also go skiing here as well as surfing. Apparently it's got some pretty sick little beach towns, so we'll definitely be doing that. And they've also got a ton of like national parks ranging from like beaches to forests to mountains to like basically everything. Yeah. So we'll definitely be national park hopping next time.
So now that we've talked about all the must-do activities while you're here in Japan, let's talk about some of the things you don't need to do. Let's first start with talking about these towers behind me. And every city, like we mentioned before, has a tower, and every guide's gonna recommend you to go up them. And while they are pretty cheap to go up, you don't really need to do them. I would recommend going to the observatory here in Tokyo. It is completely free to go up and you get an incredible view. The other thing is temples. Temple fatigue sets in big time here. There are beautiful temples everywhere, and while they are incredible, if you don't really know the history behind them or don't really have a lot of importance that draws you to them, I don't think you need to see them all.
Same with those outdoor, indoor covered little mall market situations. Every major city has one. Even the little cities have one. They also have like main ones and little ones. they're cool. They're a good way to like, you know, try food and everything, but like you don't need to go to all of them, truthfully, because they are all the same. And now for our rating on things to do in Japan, we give it a
10 out of 10.
I think this is our first 10 ever. Japan as a country pretty much has anything that you could ever want to do, like skiing, surfing, hiking, like any kind of nature. The cities are huge and they've got all the normal things you can do, plus also like crazy things like karaoke bars and hedgehog cafes and shit that you just like wouldn't see in the US. So it's gotta get a 10 out of 10.
Nothing more to say than that. Japan, you got a lot of shit to do.
And now for the best category, food.
To rank this, we break the food category down into 3 subcategories. First being quality of food, we have diversity of food, and then sweets. Now we all know Japan is known for its ramen and its sushi, but we're here to talk today if it really lives up to the hype. So first, let's talk about quality of food.
So one of the most famous Japanese foods is obviously sushi. And it is really good here. I will say the quality of fish is just like amazing, like top tier, best we've had by far. Something that's kind of strange. So I feel like in America we're used to these like super extravagant, like really fancy, unique kind of rolls. That is not what they have here in Japan. It's mainly gonna be like nigiri, so like fish on top of rice, or sashimi where it's just the fish, or these like super basic rolls with literally just like tuna inside.
And the ramen fucking hits. We knew it would, and it delivered. I will say this though, and this might be a hot take, but you gotta go to Sapporo for their miso ramen. It is by far the best ramen we had. And I'm not trying to disrespect this place, I know it's gonna be good, but
another one of our favorite Japanese dishes is katsu. Usually it's like pork, chicken, or beef, and then just like has this really nice like fried breading on the outside. Sometimes you can find something spicy, like we find this salmon, and we're super excited to try this. But katsu is delicious and one of our favorite Japanese dishes for sure. That's nice. It's like fried sashimi. Some of our other favorite foods were these super fluffy pancakes that you can get from Happy Pancake or just like other pancake places. And the best udon we've ever had from Shin Udon in Tokyo. The carbonara udon will probably change your life, I'm just saying. So it's worth the 7-hour wait. All right, now let's talk about the diversity of foods, or lack thereof. So I think that is one benefit of living in the United States, is that we have pretty much every kind of cuisine and food that you could ever ask for easily at our disposal. And that's not really the case here. You can find like some other Asian cuisines like Korean and Chinese and stuff like that. And they have a weird amount of Italian food. And pizza is actually really, really good. I don't really know why, but it is. But outside of that, you're pretty much gonna have Japanese food, and you're gonna have to work if you want something else.
there is a lot of unique Japanese food, but you'll find that it's basically centered around the same core things, which is fried foods, rice, noodles, and some kind of fish, which all things are great, but gets old after a little while. Though we did find a few foods that we thought were particularly surprising. So the first one is horse sashimi, and I know what you're thinking. You're like, how in the hell could you ever eat that? God bless my soul. It was one of the most buttery, best meats I've ever had in my life. Some other unique things we had was bean and honey pancakes. Sounds weird, I know, again, weirdly good. Cheese corn dogs, a true highlight of our trip. We had them literally everywhere. And lastly, 7-Eleven snacks, they hit. That's all I gotta say.
And now it is time for the sweets category. So we're huge sweet people. Like, we love our sweets. We've been into like 20 cities together, and I'm telling you, the sweets can kind of make or break the food category. So let's get into it.
So we had some really good sweet, but also some really bad sweets. First, let's start with the bad here. I love my donuts. They're quite possibly my favorite food in the world. And the donuts here, were not it. Now, BPC Donuts, on the other hand, is the only donut I had while I was here that I was actually happy and enthused about, so I definitely recommend doing this. The other major thing they have here that people recommend is the melon pan. And again, just was so mid, I just don't recommend it. And so the last thing is you'll see bean paste desserts literally everywhere. And I don't know why that's attractive to people, because it honestly was kind of terrible. I don't recommend. That's fucking good. That hits. Good donuts.
The ice cream, on the other hand, The shit is fire. Japan has some of the best soft serve ice cream we've ever had. This melting Premia, you have to have it. If you ever see it, stop and get it. It's the best ice cream you'll ever have in your entire life. Another banger dessert is taiyaki, aka these fish that are filled with different fillings, usually like bean paste or like a custard. Y'all know how I feel about bean paste, so we got the custard and it's so good. So warm and creamy. There are also some more traditional desserts like dafuku that we really liked. But really it's the soft serve ice cream that does it for me. That shit is just so good. And Premia, if you're watching this, please sponsor us and bring it to the US. Thank you.
So now that we've talked about each category, let's break down these scores for each one and we'll give you a final score for the food category. So for quality of food, we're giving it a strong 8.
Yeah, we got some good stuff. We also had some questionable stuff. For diversity of foods, it's gonna get a 5. You just can't really find as many different cuisines as you can somewhere like the US, so sorry.
And for our favorite category, sweets, we're giving it an 8.
That brings us to a total food score of 7 out of 10.
Again, the food here is really good. It's really just brought down by the lack of diversity of foods, but again, it's not a super diverse culture of like ethnicities, so that's probably the main reason for that.
Yeah, and if you're here for like less time than we are, that's not really an issue because you don't mind eating Japanese food every day, so.
Yeah, eating ramen for 30 days straight. Okay.
Next, it is time for the least fun category, the cost of living. You've probably heard that Japan is super expensive, and we were honestly really scared about that coming into it. We thought this trip was just gonna blow our budget, but we are happy to report that it is actually pretty affordable, and we are very pleasantly surprised.
First, let's talk about the cost of housing and hotels. So for our first 10 nights here in Tokyo, we spent about $100 per night for this absurdly tiny room. I mean, look at this. So one thing to note here is that we were in a prime spot in Shinjuku. We were actually able to stay in Asakusa for a night for quite a bit cheaper. So I would say if you look in different areas, you might be able to find a better rate. But after leaving Tokyo, most of our stays were anywhere from around $40 to $60 per night. Lake Kawaguchi was around $100 per night, but again, we booked all of these either the same day or the day before, so you could probably save a lot of money if you just book a little bit earlier than we did. Next, we have the cost of food. Now, this was one of the most surprising factors to me in Japan. The food in Japan is really cheap, well, at least compared to US standards. We could find entrees from anywhere from 900 yen to about 1300 yen, which ranges about $6 to $8 US, which is about half to 1/3 the cost of getting the same entree in America. A lot of our meals, we were able to get appetizers, 2 entrees, even drinks sometimes for around 3,000 yen, which I think is incredible. You gotta be careful with the sushi and yakitori restaurants though, because this is where we felt like we got the least bang for our buck. So if you're on a budget, 7-Eleven is a great option and one I was at probably every day. You can get snacks there for super cheap and they're honestly really good. So the next major cost is gonna be transportation. While Japan is known for its great public transportation and bullet trains, it's worth noting that transportation costs here can add up really quickly.
A train is approaching. Subway and bus tickets around most cities are pretty inexpensive, but if you do find yourself like hopping around, transferring a lot, it can definitely add up. Most journeys on the subway are going to cost you anywhere between like 200 to 500 yens or like $2 to $3, so it's not much, but it can definitely add up.
So people are probably going to recommend you take the JR bullet train, but those things are wildly expensive, and of course they went up in price the month we got here in October. So the JR pass allows you to get on the bullet trains, can be anywhere from around 70 to 140k yen, which to me is a lot of money, and it really depends on how many days you get the pass for. Now, we're not going to go into depth here about the pass because we personally did not feel as though it was worth our money considering our schedule, but there's a lot of information about it online that I highly recommend you researching before you come here and just buying it, because it may save you a lot of money and time and give you better routes to get to places you want to.
And last, we have the cost of activities. Luckily, they are pretty inexpensive, but they can definitely add up quickly. There's a lot of like walking around sightseeing you can do that's for free, but a lot of places actually do charge to get into. So like temples, these towers like Shibuya Sky, they range usually from like 300 to 2,000 yens, so they can add up quick, but I'll definitely let you decide which ones are worth it. Screw sky, 100%.
Additionally, a lot of these activities are really challenging to get to by foot. A lot of them are outside the city. Things like Chirito Pagoda, Oishi Park, Asahi Dake, Volcanic, are all free to enter, but they cost a significant amount to get there by public transportation, so that's something to take into account here.
And so for our final rating of the cost of Japan, we are giving it a 6 out of 10. That's kind of like in comparison to similar prices in the US. We think that is significantly less expensive than the US. Obviously, like other countries, it's probably more expensive than, but for us, it felt like a pretty affordable destination.
For our last category, we have atmosphere.
It's always tough to describe the atmosphere of a place, especially of an entire country. So we're gonna be basing it mainly off of views and vibes.
The views of Japan are incredible. It is just so beautiful. The nature here is just so much better here than I ever imagined.
The cities also have their own unique beauty with all of the temples and like the old ancient stuff, like the Osaka Castle is all really beautiful, as well as just various like gardens and parks throughout the city. It is really pretty. For a city this size, which has much going on and as much lights and just like crazy stuff, I was expecting like a really, really vibrant kind of electric energy, and we just didn't really get that, honestly. Like everything is very neutral, which is strange because like these lights and these like billboards and everything would make you think otherwise. So one thing I just can't get past, and that's the crowds. Like we were expecting it, you know, that's what people say, oh, it's so crowded, it's so crowded, but like nothing really prepares you for how crowded it is, just like everywhere. Like at the tourist sites, on the trains, just like legitimately everywhere. And it's like so overwhelming, and it definitely kind of like detracts from like the experience of places and just like sort of the vibe, because it's just like too overwhelming, and every day I just felt super drained after we were done. So for our final rating, the atmosphere of Japan, the views are gonna get an 8 because it is a very, very beautiful here.
Then the vibes, sadly, are only getting a 5.
That brings us out to a total of 6.5.
Yeah, not so great, not so great. Again, I think a lot of it was just because we couldn't get a strong read on the vibe here. I'm sure it's a lot more electric than we perceived in our 30 days here, but it's what we got.
Don't let that deter you. It's still a great place.
So we are coming to a close to our final night of 30 days here in Japan, and look what we've been presented.
It couldn't be a better end to this, honestly. Like, what a freaking view. Are you kidding me?
It literally looks like Mount Fuji is erupting right now. This is insane.
So it's time to know, is Japan worth the hype? Heck yes,
Hell yeah, it is. Hell yeah.
This has literally been like a trip to remember. We've had such an amazing time. I think it has like exceeded our expectations in a lot of ways, but it's also like been different from our expectations in a lot of ways, which I think is just a cool part of traveling, is you never really know what you're gonna get yourself into.
Couldn't say it better myself. So now, let's give you our final rating for the country of Japan. What do we think of it? Our final rating is a
7.4.
That's actually really, really good, and actually one of the highest scores we've gotten since our travels as digital nomads has begun. Like, don't let that score deter you in any sort of way. Like, this is definitely a place you need to add to your bucket list, and definitely a place you need to travel to, and we will 100% be back.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to do, just like besides the well-known places, that like we will definitely be back checking out more of the nature, and it's just been amazing.
So with that, I couldn't ask for a better closing to a trip like this than this view behind me and this view right here in front of me. So if you like this video, you already know what to do. Smash that like button. Drop us a comment and let us know when you're coming to Japan and what you're gonna see first. And as always, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you get a reminder every single time we post. FTX.com.